Hello and welcome to the latest episode of Cotunquit Chronicles, which has been broadcast and developed here in the island of Cotunquit in our studio. We acknowledge the custodians of the land where we are broadcasting from today, including the Narragansett Nation, and we pay our respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging. I'm your host, James Allen, and I'm joined here most weeks, and this week by the extraordinary adventurer, extreme sport enthusiast, and all-around great gal, Ashlyn Komorick. Hello and welcome to Cotunquit Chronicles. And I'm here today with Ashlyn Komorick. And we are working on a tightrope today of sorts.
How are you today, James?
I'm okay, but I have sad, memories of 23 years ago on this date. At this hour I was preparing to teach a class at the University of Rhode Island. I was at school. I had a class that was it was principles of athletic coaching. However, I taught it as almost a philosophy class. I did teach it as a philosophy. It was more philosophy than anything else. So the framework was principles of athletic coaching. And the students were wonderful. I had 44 students in a single room. It was very, very nice. But I'm on my way to class. It's 9:30. I'm late. And, of course, that's when a lot of things happened.
You might want to explain that today is 9/11.
Today is September 11th. And 23 years ago and about 12 hours, there were two planes that hit the
There were
towers.
4 planes.
There were 4. True. One hit the Pentagon, too. 4 planes crashed that day, and terrorists were involved in all of that. And a lot of people know this history, but I was on the way to class, and there was a group of people looking at a television, and we all stopped, and I just ended class and then started to call people that I knew that had been alumnus of the University of Rhode Island men's soccer program where I coached, and I was just looking to make sure that all the people that I knew that were in the city were okay, and all were okay that day, except many of them suffered greatly, losing. One fellow we knew went to 40 funerals.
Wow.
And not over a long period of time either.
Mm-hmm.
It was life-changing for him. So, a sad day. And I want to remind the listening public that when you do go to the city, to New York, and I think we talked about this briefly, but when you're at the reflecting pool, reflect mentally. Do not take selfie pictures with your family smiling at the site. It's like going to the Vietnam Memorial and having a birthday party. Don't do that.
It is very weird.
I asked an older gentleman that was there that had experienced it, and then I also asked the police officer that had experienced this day 23 years ago if they objected to this kind of behavior, and he's just nodded his head. It's a solemn place. Let's remember what happened that day. Changed the world in many, many ways. So, that said, let's not go in a bummer. I thought we'd play a little game, to start off. 3 things about Cotunquit that you don't like, because we talk about things that we like oftentimes about the community, and I thought we might talk about some things that, just don't
It's a little bit of a bitching session here.
I don't know. if you want to call it that. I could start off if you'd like.
Are we alternating, or are you going to do your threes?
I think we should alternate.
Okay, go ahead, start.
I don't like absentee neighbors.
Absentee neighbors, so snowbirds or people that just bought houses and are renting them out as an investment or something?
The second one. The snowbirds I understand, as I'm aging. I wouldn't go to Florida, probably. It's too flat. I don't like the architecture, but I think that going somewhere where it's warmer sometimes in the winter is not a bad idea. Idea. And so the thought there is, okay, we can get a little warmer. But these are folks that just buy a house, blow it up, build a huge house, have, all the splits and everything and all that underground stuff going in. They just run that thing all year round to keep it cool and hot.
Oh, so they're not even renting their houses out?
No. These are just people.
These are their third, fourth, fifth homes, and they maybe come for 2 weeks in the summer.
Yes, and there's
a lot of that going on.
There's a person in my neighborhood that did just that, including a pool and everything, and then they don't show up. They run the pool. They have people monitoring it all the time, cutting the grass, and they've been there no weeks this year.
Yeah, they're all, that's the 1% that.
But it's more common now. So that's.
It's very common in Cotuncquit.
Yeah, I think Cotuncquit has its share of second and third owners. All right, what do you have?
I was going to say the shortage of restaurants.
Yes, I would agree. There are restaurants that they have a hard time because of the seasonal thing.
Yeah, I know it's probably tough. Newport doesn't seem to have that problem, maybe because there's more people and there's more people visiting way beyond the normal summer season these days.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, and the other thing is the restaurants we do have are not open on Mondays and Tuesdays for the most part.
It's a shortage of people to work there, for sure. Yeah.
That's why we need to clamp down on the border.
It's so ridiculous. I know that was satiric. Housing rules prohibiting secondary domiciles on site on lots less than 20,000 square feet. What a bummer. We have almost 20,000, but not quite.
Is that with the new thing that was just passed?
I think so. So 20,000 square feet, just a little too much for my group. So I would like to have a second little home. Maybe I would live there, and the kids could live in the other part of the house. Mm-hmm. That'd be fun.
So no in-law apartment on your property?
No. So what's your next one?
Let's see.
And I don't really like that. I don't like that at all. It just gets in my craw, I don't like it. It's hard for me to understand.
Well, if you had enough money, you could do anything on your property. You could even flaunt the zoning laws, and you would just pay the fines and keep going, like that house.
Oh. Mm-hmm.
Down on the east side there.
Oh, that's not the case yet, but we may have more listeners coming. I can sense it.
Yes, I'm going to also related to houses and stuff. People who live near public rights of ways and try to discourage the general public from using them. That bugs me.
I don't like that. I don't like to use the word hate, but I don't like that at all.
Yeah, I mean, they don't have enough with their own waterfront property, but they want to stop others from having access to the waterfront.
And there's also these groups of homes that are on the same cluster, and then they think that their rights to the water, even though they have a right of way, they think that's singularly only for their group.
Oh, yeah. And then they start slowly landscaping and covering property markers and making it look like it's not a right of way anymore.
They plant jungle-like vines and stuff. Yeah, I hate that very much. No good. Very bad. Along those lines, though, people that complain about fishermen and fisherwomen who are, either working near the bay or they're just enjoying the bay in front of their homes. So they have this home that overlooks the water, and they're giving people shit about, and using the Narragansett Bay. It's absurd.
Yeah, they like to think that they own that whole section of water in front of their house. Not just the beach, but they don't even want to see those people in a boat in front of their house.
Is that 6? Did we do 3 and 3?
My third one was not being able to cross the bridges by foot or bike.
That is true. I think that's bad planning.
Yeah.
Or fear of people, going over the side.
I think when those bridges were built, nobody even considered it, and now they don't want to spend the money, or they're afraid of. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I think.
Cotunkwood, it's inaccessible, really.
Yeah, you're stuck here. You have to either. Well, if you want to go west, you have to take a car.
Or a bus that has the
Right.
bicycle contraption on it.
If you want to get off the island to the east, you could take a ferry, but it costs you
A lot.
a lot.
All right. Your ferry used to be cheap, but it's no longer.
No, it's not.
All right. So all that said, those are things that we're pissed about and we don't like. So we don't like these things. And when we want you to know what we don't like. We'll tell you a lot about what we do like in part of the parts of the show. But now you should hear trumpets. And waves. Those are waves. And now we'll talk some more. I was thinking of this return of the bullshit. Is it bullshit or not? Because there's been an outcry for more bullshit. Is it bullshit or not? We'll do these quickly because, they're fun and people want to hear it, apparently. So that's great.
Okay.
I'll go first if you'd like. Why don't you go first this time? Because it's...
All right, I'll go. I know that this episode has to do with tightrope or lines or something. So just coming up with something quickly. This is about the lack of lines when maybe there should have been lines.
Phone lines?
No. Like lines, like dock lines. So many years ago, canoeing on the Housatonic, canoe camping. Canoed a whole section.
Is that like 80 miles?
No. And then we decided we're going to camp in this spot.
You and Stu?
It was Stuart, myself, my mother, and a friend of mine.
Oh, cool. Your mother's right in there.
And so, we found this nice spot and pulled the canoes up, and we were right above a dam, and set up our campsite, pitched a few tents.
I just have to note that that's a foursome. But anyway, go on.
And then the next morning, the canoes were gone.
Oh, that's big trouble. Is it bullshit or is it not?
Well, the canoes were gone, and I should point out the canoes were gone not because somebody stole them. The canoes were gone because apparently at certain times they don't release water, what the opposite of releasing water from the dam. So the level of the river above the dam gets much higher.
Yes.
So the canoes were just pulled up, It's not tidal, so why would we pull the canoes very far and we didn't tie them off?
Also, they were just floating. Is this bullshit or not? Is the question, though. I have to remember that. I got wrapped up in the story, in the telling of the story, and the thought that your mother and your friend who were out there with Stuart and you all not tying off. Of course, why would you tie off a canoe? It's a way above water. Okay. You know, it's so plausible, I'm going to say bullshit.
No, it's true.
No, it's true.
I might add that the water was lapping at the entrance of my mother's tent.
Oh. Well, that would be an indicator. That was an extra ad. Good. So on that topic, someone suggested that you don't play fairly with this
Because?
game. They said that you have a tendency to play. This was the neighbor across the street there. He said you have a tendency to play. Everything is like really plausible. Everything's good. Everything's true. Everything's true. There's only one little element that's not true. So I don't know.
That could be.
Okay.
I'm going to have to re-listen to all of the bullshit or not segments and see if I've been cheating.
Okay. So mine. Here we go. So aging. Aging isn't something that we do incrementally. Aging is no longer believed to be year by year, but at the age of 44, aging accelerates exponentially and then slows down, and then once again at 60, aging. So memory loss and that stuff can start at 44. There's weakness that begins at 44, and then at 60, once again, it shoots up. So this is a recent discovery. Is it bullshit or not?
Not because I read the article that said this.
Okay. So.
And I don't like it one bit. I prefer the nice, 45 degrees slope approach to aging.
Okay, it's your turn. You got that one. So it's 1-0.
Wait, we're supposed to have a second bullshit or not?
Oh, I have another one.
Oh, well, then you better go because I was only prepared with one.
Okay. Is it bullshit or not? Do squirrels that deposit their acorns, and all of them do they return them at a rate of 95%? Do they find 95%?
Of the ones they hide?
Of the ones they hide. And they hide 10,000, up to 10,000 a year. So they
Yes.
find 95% of them.
Yes.
It is true. Yes, that is true. I was shocked to know this, and I did some research this time.
That's why there aren't hundreds of oak trees growing around your yard, because it's only the few that they didn't find.
Isn't that nice?
Here's a squirrel question. Do squirrels eat the nuts before they're ripe?
I don't know, but that's a crazy question. It's nuts. Now, I think there's a likelihood that they do not. I think they wait, and they make flour, and then they make cakes. Acorn cakes.
The squirrels in my yard eat all of the hazelnuts off of the tree before they are ready.
Those are hazelnuts. That's a little different, but that's good. It's good to know. I wanted to ask a question about Shimon Willett, from our, from the story, but also from town here. Did you know that she's studying for a master's degree in marriage counseling, of all things?
I did not know that, and that's interesting. Will we learn in the third episode?
Is it bullshit or not?
I say it's bullshit.
It is false.
I'm 3 for 3 today.
Very good. All right. Music.
So are we going to get to episode 3?
Yeah, we are very shortly.
Okay.
We have to hear trumpets and stuff. So I've been working on this, The Ties That Bind series of stories. We've listened to 2 stories.
Mm-hmm.
Ashlyn's going to review that.
Well,
But
yeah.
I wanted to talk about before that, I wanted to talk about just the writing style and how things come about, And there were supposed to be 3, and I was supposed to finish today. But I'm just having so much fun writing with these characters that are, these real folks that are living in our town here in Cotuncquit, that I figured I'd keep going, and we might have a fourth story in this series. So just a heads up on that. And at some point, the characters, as I get to know them more, and, I know them in town here, but then I know them on the page, they start to talk to me and tell me what to write. So that's where I'm at right now, and we're following these folks that live in town here. So, thanks for their willingness to, give us this time, essentially, and let us write about them. But, of course, I'm writing from what I've talked to them about and what's happened, and, so it's fiction, right? So there we have it, The Ties That Bind. I just wanted to explain a little bit about that, and we've had 2 episodes thus far. Hopefully you've listened to both of them, but Ashlyn's going to help you out with what happened last week.
Okay, Ashlyn's going to try to help herself out. So what I remember was that we started to learn a lot more about the complicated relationship between Stuart and Shimon. And it all started when Stuart came back with a dump, as many people do in Cotuncquit, with lots of things that you find on the table. You're supposed to be getting rid of a bunch of your trash, but then you find other people's trash, and what's the saying about one man's trash is another man's treasure?
Or woman.
So Stuart comes home with a bunch of stuff. Shimon's not too happy. I've been in that position before. It was my son, not my husband, but and then somewhere in there, in that whole back and forth, she learns about Maisie. She's not too happy about that. Things, get a little.
Maisie is the
young
woman that
from episode 1.
From episode 1,
who Stuart seems to have a bit of a thing for.
And I think it's true. It's safe to say that Maisie has a thing for him as well.
I don't know about that. I mean, she's being nice to him, but I feel like many times when a woman is nice to a man, the man thinks there's more to it than the woman.
I think that's a pretty accurate statement. Would you have to just like say hello, at a certain point in a man's life, right?
Yeah.
Oh, gosh.
Anyway,
so she brushed up against me.
It means something. So then there's a little back and forth. Shimon actually, they have a moment because there's a
Shimon
point
is Stuart's wife.
Yes, there's a point where Stuart seems like he might die from falling off the ladder and scares Shimon, and you can see that she still has feelings for him. But then things quickly go dicey again, and, when the going gets tough, Stuart sneaks out and goes to the Cotuncquit Cafe.
And that's
rather
where
than
we
deal.
Are. That's where we are in the story. The Ties That Bind 3. That's just number 3. TVs are off when Stuart enters the bar. His head hangs low, his pockets full of quarters strain at his belt, and he turns and he walks out. There's no one in the bar, and he doesn't want to be the first customer. It'd be more degrading than walking into the bar with rolled quarters, with the intent to buy beer. He gets back into the truck and heads to the dock to check on the boat. Long days in May, as the vernal equinox approaches in June, can make for some long work days. But for now, Stewart's oyster cages are floating upside down, drying on their tethers in the channel near Dutch Island. When the gear gets the first growth of the season of seaweed crap, it's best to turn the gear upside down on the stringers and let the bags and the seaweed-laden cages dry in the sun. Of course, there's oysters in there, too. If it's done early enough in the season and the temperatures aren't too warm, the oysters are fine, and they also improve their look as their shells clear of algal growth. However, if an oyster grower leaves his gear or her gear too long in the sun, the oysters will die. Stewart was feeling edgy about the temperature this afternoon, approaching 75 degrees Fahrenheit. It doesn't take long, and he makes the decision to flip the cages back into the water. Stewart starts the diesel engine, producing smoke from the stack atop the cabin of the 40-foot former lobster boat. He releases the forward line first with the incoming tide, the spring line second, and then the aft line. The boat drifts gently into the tide forward and away from the pier, and he slips the old engine into gear, chugging slowly to the first anchored line of cages. Stewart clips into the line and slides down to the first cage, secures a hook to the base of the cage, and inspects the shellfish, smelling the cage, an exposed bag of mature 150 oysters. All seems okay, and the cages are plenty dry, but the oysters are hot, and they're suffering. So he lifts the cage with his drum, winch, and flipping the cage upright as the oysters drop below the surface of the water. Stewart watches a spring's worth of growth stream into the tide as he slips down to the next cage to repeat the process. He recalls when he had bottom gear and how he had to perpetually power wash each cage, and he hated it. Looking back across the vast 2-mile stretch of oyster farms, Midville oysters just to the south, Pernod further south, and Blue Chip farm oysters on the inside of the harbor. And he notices all the other oyster farmers, gear is turned over and drying in the hot sun. Stewart shakes his head curiously, saying aloud, "They're all in the sun." He checks the temperature on his phone for Ketunkwit. 78 degrees, he mouthed. "They're gonna cook." He hurriedly goes back to work, spinning all 176 cages over the pier to the next hour. He sniffs each cage, but none of his cages smell funkier than they should. Stewart opens a warm can of Narragansett beer he finds in the forward bunk, place he had stayed overnight on more than one occasion when things weren't quite right with Shimon and him. He drinks the beer in one long gulp, crushes the can like Captain Quint in the movie Jaws, smiling as he struggles with the can. He cannot stop thinking about those other farms and their gear, and he wonders if he should tell them about the temperature of their oysters or not. Midville's owner thinks he knows it all. He graduated from Brown University, and he's always references literature that Stewart knows nothing about when he's in his company. And the guy is a scientist and a genius, and he lets everyone know it. Stewart wouldn't offer his dock hose if the guy's boat was on fire, so Stewart doesn't plan on telling him about the heat. Pernod and his crew play right-wing talk shows all day while they work, so Stewart does not feel right telling them. And Blue Chip's not part of the Stewart's co-op and sells direct-to-consumer restaurants and bars, and he always gets a better price than Stewart. So Stewart, being a partial member of the co-op, is limited to how many oysters he can bring in each week, which has limited his ability to make a living. Pernod always rallies the votes to vote him down each year when membership is considered, and Blue Chip isn't even in the co-op. And Harley Beale, the big owner of the Blue Chip, chimes in every so, and Stewart's farm is forced to comply with limitations. so Stewart didn't have any use for any of the farmers in this part of the Narragansett Bay. Not one of them helped him when he was coming up. Why should he tell them anything? The temperature has risen to 83 degrees during the last hour. Stewart loves cleaning his boat while underway on his way back to the dock. The heavy wash hose pushes pressurized water over the deck, flushing dirt and seaweed out the back of the Novi hull. She cleans up fast and looks brand new when Stewart finishes. He even scrubs a few areas near the winch with soapy water. Stewart feels that keeping a clean boat is something that he can control in his life, and he always feels better when it's done. He tells his deckhand whenever he can afford one, "A clean boat is a happy boat, and a happy boat brings in more oysters." Stewart stops the boat off the northern tip of the island and fishes for a while, catching a few summer flounder while jigging bucktails with bits and pieces of whatever was left in the live well, some old broken oyster entrails and one putrid conch. He didn't bother to check the size limit in the fish. Size limits seem to change with every season. He just fillets the 2 fish, chucks the racks off the back, and packs the fillets in a plastic bag. Covers the bag with some old boys he'd found floating in a clump last week. He'd eat the fish and use the boys for decorations on his front porch, even though Shimon had a different idea about the decor for the front of the house. Maybe Shimon would cook tonight. Or he'd fry the fish if she's out with Rachel. He can't recall how Rachel and Shimon left it. He can't remember much. Stewart ties up the boat and walks to his truck and parked near the sailing center. A green Department of Environmental Management truck is parked near his truck. "Oh, shit," he says under his breath as he carries the bucket of buoys-covered the illegal fillets in his right hand. The officer exits the truck as he approaches. "No, not now," he thinks. "You been north of the island just now?" the officer says without a hello. "Yeah, sure. I was turning my gear. It's too hot for today for drying oysters," Stewart says, deflecting the officer's attention. "You see some kids in sailboats up around the corner? My kid's sailing, and there's a storm coming this afternoon," the officer says, looking to the horizon beyond the island, near the bridge. "I saw them. Yeah, sure did. The small 17-whaler with a 40 horsepower with the instructors in it was towing them. So they must know of the storm." Phew, I was sure these instructor kids were on their cell phones all day and not paying attention. "I probably know too much to be a parent of a kid in the water," he says. The officer says, "My parents never knew what the hell I was up to on the bay all day. I'm not a parent, but I've seen some storms, and that cloud over to the west, probably in Connecticut right about now, is likely to knock the hell out of us in about an hour and a half," Stewart adds. "Of course, you know. Thanks for the info." Stewart nods his head and passes him, opens the passenger side door, places the bucket on the front seat, and goes around and gets in. Starts the engine, proceeds at 10 miles per hour speed limit. That's all he needs now to get a $2,000 ticket for catching and filleting 2 fish, and to beat all, come home to Shimon without any dinner. He enters the driveway, goes around the back to the back door where there's a breezeway for hanging his fish farming gear. He crumples his salty jeans and crusted shirt in a ball and places them in his personalized hamper. Shimon placed an oyster sticker on the front of the panel of the hamper to assure her that his clothes never mingle with hers. The screen door slams behind him. He intended to be quiet. He couldn't stand having an argument now, but the loud door assures that he'll be greeted by Shimon in the kitchen before he can escape to the shower. "Where the fuck have you been?" she snaps. "I went for a walk, then I picked up the truck, and I flipped the gear. You know, it's too hot," he says quickly and honestly. But you just fucking left. 1 minute you're working on the house, and you go inside, and then you're gone. What the fuck? She says. I realized how hot it was getting, and I had to flip the cages. You know that. You know what happens? Stuart reasoned. Who saw you? Shimon questions curiously. No one. Just some clam cop that I thought was going to hassle me, but turns out he was worried about his kid and sailing with a sailing program down the park. So everyone else's gear is baking in the sun? Shimon lifts her bra strap as she speaks, lifting her breast for emphasis. Yeah, and I didn't tell anyone either. I didn't, Stuart says proudly. Damn right you didn't. If there's 2 million oysters cooking in the sun, means our oysters become famous all of a sudden now, doesn't it? She says, now smiling broadly. I'm going to be hauling while they be balling. We're going to hold the entire Dutch island market, Shimon. We're gonna hold it all. How many of you figure you got ready out there, she asks. All our stuff, almost. What last 4 weeks, they let me sell just 2,000 a week, so that's like 2 cages worth. So 174 cages times 12 bags times 150 per bag, say 150 for, so 150, maybe 140, right, for fuck-ups and gnarly ones. That's, Stuart didn't finish. 290,000 oysters, she interrupts. Stuart gets his phone out and calculates. 292,320. They were giving me 55 cents per oyster last week. But with a shitload of dead Dutch oysters, island oysters, they're probably closer to $1 a piece now. Stuart says this while smiling, with a smile that Simone rarely sees. You're fucking kidding me, Shimon says. If we sit tight for 2 weeks, pull them mid-month, we'll own the market for Memorial Day. How about that? Stuart says. You're a fucking genius, Stuart Willett. You start calling restaurants, put our name on the lips of every restaurant in Newport, and I'll hire a deckhand if I can to process everything we have. We can do this, Shimon, Stuart says, encouragingly, while reaching out for her shoulder, his hand falling down to her hand. Shimon releases his hand and says enthusiastically, okay, but think of this. Wouldn't we be smarter to find a single buyer and let them distribute our oysters? If we get $1 an oyster, what do we care if they make 20 cents on them? I'll call Nick Vieira from Eastern Seafood. We'll have an answer. But I won't call until, tomorrow, after the fleet's lost everything. And they lost everything in the sun, right? They've lost all their product. Wow. That's better for me because I can focus on pulling and processing a shitload of oysters while Vieira can come to the dock with his cooler box truck and then ship the motherfuckers wherever. I'll start calling. You dredge up someone from the cafe to work for the next 3 days. Promise them good money and long hours. I think a bunch of them went scalloping offshore. Cafe's been empty, Stuart says. You'd know, Shimon responds. Let's not do this. Just, come on, let's not do this. Okay. Shimon grabs Stuart by both arms and hauls him into her chest quickly. We're going to do this, Stuart. We're going to get out of this mess once and for all. She kisses Stuart on the lips like a mafia don. Stuart had been so accustomed to only feeling her jealousy, he hadn't felt anything but dead lately when it comes to Shimon. He smiles, jumps into his truck, and drives towards the Tunkwood Cafe. But as evening light leaves Tunkwood, he diverts course and heads to South Pond Reservoir Trail that runs along the shore where his and all the other oyster farmers' gear is set. The nearly dark trail is wet in spots as he slogs along in wet leather boots. He takes a deer trail to the shoreline. The evening southwest breeze has died to a point where it's just tickling his nose hairs. As he reaches the shoreline, the smell hits him immediately. Aha, I'm right. Their stuff is all dead and rotting. Those poor bastards, they've lost it all. He says this aloud for no one to hear except a cormorant, sitting atop a mooring ball with his wings stretched out, cooling itself at last light. Stewart sprints back to the truck, spins the tires in the driveway. Sloshy saltwater remnants from higher tides than ever before, and he makes his way to the Katunkwit Cafe. He crosses the street, pulls his cap down as if he's entering a strip club, not wanting to be seen, and enters through the black, heavily painted door. He looks towards the bar and the pool table and sees that the place is full of the regulars at the bar, 4 bikers in leather jackets playing pool, and in the far corner, alone, and eating fries from a plastic basket sits Maisie Templeton, dressed in coveralls and a clean white t-shirt, her curls draping from the top of her head like tinsel on a Christmas tree, almost sparkling from the light of the street lamp shining through the window. When she sees Stewart, she reaches out with her left hand, waves and smiles as if she's on a carnival ride and waving to her father. Stewart shakes his head and waves back, taking 3 steps forward and stopping. He looks around the bar for fishermen types that frequent the cafe, but Maisie's the only member of the Fishermen's Club present. He continues his walk toward her as she waves him over. "What you doing?" Maisie calls out as she nears. "Looking for a deckhand for a few days, but doesn't seem anyone's in town," Stewart says as he waves his arm at the open dance floor in the bar behind him. "Someone's squid and the others are scalloping, but I'm open for a couple of days. Sean's working on the prop. Seems we spun the prop Saturday. Gotta get new bushings, the boat's on blocks right now," Maisie explains. "That sucks. Fishing must be picking up right now, given the water temps." Stewart commiserates. "Yeah, Saturday. We had a hold of an early bluefish, caught 9,000 pounds at $2 a pound, came in with $20,000 a day, but boat's down, so that's the way fishing is," she says. "I can't pay those kind of numbers that you need. It's just processing oyster, lots of washing and bagging and carrying long days. It's no good," Stewart explains. "Big order, huh? You pick up a seafood fest contract or something?" she asks. "No. Vieira over to Eastern Seafood needs them, but don't tell anyone. This is on the QT, okay? He'll pick them up on the dock, so no hassles. It's just a lot of work. It'll be, I'll be glad to get rid of this stuff and start some new bags. These oysters will grow too big in 60 days or so. This time of year they grow so fast," Stewart explains. "When can we start?" she asks. "I don't know if I don't know if I can or should." Stewart says this while looking around the room with tourists and regulars as the band sets up on the stage nearby. "Should what? Can what?" Maisie asks. "No, nothing. 4:30 at the dock. See you then. 12-hour days at least. Say 500 a day. You get paid when I get paid. Okay with you?" "That works for me. I'm open," she says. "Do you want a drink?" Maisie asks. "What are you having? Looks fancy," Stewart asks. "White Russian," Maisie says while lifting the glass and sipping her drink. "That'd keep me up all night," Stewart responds. "Sounds good to me," Maisie says. "I gotta go get some diesel for the boat and fuel up, Maisie. See you in the morning." All right, but for the record, I did ask. Maisie says while smiling. And for the record, I declined. Stewart waves and leaves the bar, rushing home to tell Shimon he'd found a deckhand-mate. He isn't sure how she'll take the news of Maisie Templeton's acceptance of the position, and him being with her all day long for probably the next 4 days. Stewart's never been sure of much of anything in his life, but this time he's sure close to a big score. He's close, and he can almost taste the well-seasoned, seared sirloin of near certain success.
I'm really worried.
Who are you worried for? Shimon?
No,
Maisie?
I'm just thinking like he thinks this is a sure thing and something could happen.
Yeah.
I'm also a little upset about the
deckhand?
the oyster carnage.
I thought you might be. 2 million oysters.
Right, just because I want to be spiteful, we'll just let all these oysters die.
Yeah, it's true. But they belong to people that weren't favorable.
I know, but they're living creatures and they could be feeding somebody and,
That's
it's a
true.
waste.
Well, they're feeding something, because they're not wasted. They're sent into the ocean. All of that calcium returns, and they're eaten by fish.
Yeah, but at that volume of dead oysters in a short amount of time.
I have to I'll call out to my friend Mike right now. Every time I see him, he says, "Are you a man or are you a fish?" He says, "Are you a man or are you a fish?" He sent me some funny stuff today about. He called the former president who had last night. There was the debate between Kamala Harris and the former president, and he referred to him as Orange Jesus. So I promptly wrote a song about Orange Jesus.
Which hopefully you'll share with us one day.
I'll probably share it next week. We're going to do some music soon. I was prompted by a friend in town here, and he suggested that I be bringing some of my country music here to the show. And I thought he might be a great guest sometime, because he knows everything about music.
And for those people who can't see James, he's dressed in a very Johnny Cash shirt right now.
You may wonder why I always dress in black. Never wear bright colors on my back. So this story is evolving a little bit, right? Mm-hmm. Has a lot of different directions
the plot
it can
thickens.
go. Do you think that there might be a big score here?
There's potential, but I always feel like when you're counting your chickens before they hatch, you're setting yourself up for a big fall.
Of course, there's all kinds of scores in life,
Well, yeah, he's working on that's a mistake too. I know he was in a bit of a pickle there, but
well, he was cleaning the gutters not too long ago.
What is the year of this story?
Oh, this happened fairly recently.
So cell phones are in existence.
Yeah.
I mean, a simple call to Shimon, there's nobody here except for Maisie. What do you think?
Oh, I don't think that's the way Stewart operates.
Obviously not.
No, he's done enough of that type of checking in his lifetime, and I believe that he's felt this his being repelled for long enough. It's been a long time since they rock and rolled. So maybe there's this going on. Well, I mean, that's the way he described. You get two sides of the story, of course, from Shimon and from Stewart. As I did my research this time, I did some research. I got to visit with these folks.
Impressive.
Nice people, really nice people. On their own, They're very nice. And you never know what's going to happen next. Episode 4. So that was that story. I thought we'd have a little break here. Remember when Ellen Serenity was telling us about the shorter waves and how they brought things to the surface? And, you know, a lot of what she said came back to me. And, you know, I don't have that. It was kind of recall. But she's a very memorable person. And I'd like to have her back on the show sometime.
I'm sure she'd like to come back.
Yeah, that would be a lot of fun. She's a cool person. I thought it would be time to sort of, you know, think about our sponsors. And tonight we have 4 sponsors tonight. But I was also going to just interject and say, if you're out there, you own a business in town, in Cotuncquit, and you want to, or any of the nearby towns, it would be great for you to join in the sponsorship. And we would, we'd love it.
And we're not limiting ourselves to nearby towns.
That's true.
If you're in California and you want to sponsor us,
yeah, that's true too. They don't have to be nearby towns.
We're not picky.
We're so small. I'm such a small thinker. I'm thinking about an island and maybe another island, but no other places on Earth where the people might be considering us. Of course, I know that there are people listening in upstate New York right now, and they've been listening right along. They're sending letters and notes. I'm excited about that. And then we have our super fan Dave, who's been fun. And he makes a note each time now. He's sending me notes all the time as to
nice
how he thought the show went, and I'm loving it. So criticism's okay, and you can reach us at cotunquitchronicles@gmail.com. Okay, so a commercial. Here we go. We are sponsored by none other than Blue Chip Farm Oysters. We're back and bigger than ever. So they're back. Although our oysters are small and fancy. With every Blue Chip oyster, you enter a world of love. It's a familiar theme with oyster growers, right? They like to promote the whole love section of the whole thing. You eat an oyster and you get horny. Or is
the aphrodisiac
yeah, that quality
element.
I said horny, you said aphrodisiac. That's a 50-cent word. With every delicious slurp, you have a chance to unveil a blue chip pearl. Buyers never choke on the blue chip oyster, except when they get the bill. With Blue Chip, you can be sure you're eating the finest oysters in North America. You know, there was an occasion, not with an oyster, but even more rare. When I was a kid, I found a pearl. It was like a purple pearl, bluish purple pearl in a quag. And they're supposed to be like super rare. And at the time, I was a little kid. I kept it for a long time in this one jar.
And now you don't know where that is.
I don't know where that is. And I wish I did, because I saw one that went for $9,000.
Wow. I found a pearl in a mussel, and I still have it.
Very good.
It's not round, though.
Is it pretty?
It is pretty, but it's not round.
You make a nice something out of that. You deserve it. Put a ring together or something. Well, maybe Stuart or Ricky, probably Ricky in this case, would take care of that for you.
I keep meaning to go get some more mussels just to eat, but I always think, like, now going forward, I might find another pearl.
It's always easy to get mussels. Okay, so that's Blue Chip Farm Oysters. Get your oysters at Blue Chip. I guess, or buy them from Stuart. Let's face it, Stuart will let's get some nice oysters too. Oh, sorry, Blue Chip. We're also sponsored by Norman Stem's Pet Cemetery and Mortuary. It offers pet owners the comfort of knowing that your pet, after its demise, whether untimely or not, is provided the proper and dignified burial that they deserve. With Norman Stems, you have a trusted friend preparing your pet's final arrangements. Someone led the scouting program for 10 years, was a regular contributor to a host of sporting teams, most notably the recent winning lacrosse team that made it to the state semifinals, despite playing one person short for much of the year. No one knows what happened to the missing team member from the Norman Stems Pet Cemetery and Mortuary Spiders lacrosse team. When pet death comes a-knockin', calls Norman Stems. Isn't that a nice story? And nothing's been solved about the missing child. Silhouette Stained Glass offers personalized silhouettes of yourself or family members, whomever, in stained glass window form. This is a good idea, right? You can look at yourself through the sunlit rays of a window in your home with SSG lighting your way. I think it's a pretty good idea. I don't know how it's...
Are you going to gift Eva a stained glass window of your face?
I would prefer to... Maybe the dog. Because the dog's like 16. He's going to die someday. I'm going to have to call...
You'll have to call Norman.
Yeah, I had to look up, see who it was. So that's that silhouette stained glass. I thought it was a pretty good idea. You know, people are buying stuff like that all the time. And it's right on, where is it? None other than Ketunkwit, Maine, right? It's next to that other shop that doesn't sponsor. We don't ever get any sponsorship from that other shop that's next door. They sell paintings. We have to work on that. The Ketunkwit Bookomanian library reminds you that we have books, and if you can't find what you're looking for, we can borrow it and have it for you in a few days. At Ketunkwit Bookomanian Library, we are open till 8 p.m. daily and after hours for special events, such as the Children's Reading Hour, where children read children's picture books to adults for an hour. Give your child the experience of reading to you in a public setting. Hear the classics from an entirely new perspective. Another good idea, don't you think?
That is a good idea.
I think children should do more reading to their parents.
I think they should also advertise that they have air conditioning.
Boy, that would be good right now. Could use a little of that. But, it's been better lately, but not perfect. At least I don't have to bring a bottle of water with me when I'm here. So, as I'm talking here, I'm thinking, did we miss anything tonight that you wanted to discuss? We talked about 9/11, but I kind of told you my story. I didn't hear what happened to you on this.
9/11. I was here.
Oh, so you were teaching or working in the school system?
I was working, yeah. The superintendent at the time had a TV in her office. And, it was pretty weird. I mean, one plane, and nobody knew what it was in the beginning, one plane hitting a building is one thing, but then a second one, that was when everybody knew.
And then the building falling into the city.
Yeah, and the fact that it collapsed. I mean, I didn't expect that. Did you expect that? Like,
no.
even though the building was on fire, I didn't.
They said at first, when we first heard, that there were 50,000 people in the one building. That was not accurate because there were people. It was early in the morning, and it happened to be after the night after Monday Night Football. Apparently, a lot of people didn't show up to work early, so that was good. And of course, the Pentagon was struck, and you knew something really bad was going on. And the president at the time, President Bush, was reading children's books.
Oh, that's right.
That's right. Yeah. And he got the news, and he kept going, which was, he probably had to process that one. But I don't know why he didn't jump up and say, those have been really important.
He was probably worried about the kids.
Yeah, that's good that he did. He was a pleasant man, I guess. I think we should, I think we need to wrap it up.
I think we do.
All right. So we're going to do this. We like trumpets. We really like trumpets. And you know who likes waves? Maisie Templeton. I'll get the door.
See you later, James.
Bye. Are we almost out of memory on the memory stick? Uh-oh. Oh, no.